officially start. So welcome once again to the TRANSCAN 2026 Joint Transnational Call Information Session by Scienza Malta. We are the Internationalization Unit. I'm Christy Baldacchino. I am joined with my colleague Anna Ciuccia, who we will be basically guiding you through everything that you need to know about the recently launched Joint Transnational Call. Just a small brief about Scienza Malta. Scienza Malta, as you might already know, is the is the national funding agency responsible for research and innovation, as well as the exploration of space. In fact, as you can see there are a number of units that Scienza Malta is divided into. Namely, for example, would be the internationalization unit where we come from, which is guided by the policy and strategy unit, which lays out the thematics and priorities for the country, and by which then we follow them through our participation and opportunities in EU funds and national funds. In general, the internationalization unit's aim is to find international collaborative opportunities to offer to Malta-based researchers using national funds, in our case, to strengthen international R&I collaboration and to try to find these global challenges that we can tackle globally instead of every country by itself, basically. So since TRANSCAN being one of them, we will be presenting this today. So as you can see, this is our current portfolio. It's constantly growing, as you might be familiar with. On one side, on the left-hand side, you can see the multilateral initiatives, which TRANSCAN is part of, which basically means that this is a collaboration between multiple countries and funding agencies. This also means that these are top-down calls. So like TRANSCAN, the initiative itself has a general aim that it's trying to achieve, and thus it would be looking for projects that are working towards that particular goal. On the right-hand side, you can see our bilateral portfolio, which would be our collaboration with one other country, which are more bottom-up. So it would be, for example, the criteria of health in this case, and any project that falls under that criteria would be eligible. So they work slightly differently. Since TRANSCAN is a multilateral initiative, we will be focusing on the multilateral aspect today. But should you have any questions or be interested in the bilateral cooperation or in any other initiative you see here, we are also very good contact points to have to ask any questions. Now I give the floor to my colleague Anna, who will be guiding you through all that you need to know about TRANSCAN. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Christy, for the introduction. So now I will be giving you an introduction into TRANSCAN-4, which is a new opportunity. TRANSCAN-4 full name is Sustained Collaboration of Funders to Support Cancer Translational Research. And TRANSCAN-4 is basically a pan-European initiative that gathers national, regional funding agencies that join forces and launch annual joint transnational calls by pooling resources to fund translational cancer research. The focus is primarily on funding innovative solutions to cancer detection, treatment, and prevention. As Christy mentioned, and as part of multilateral team in internationalization units, TRANSCAN-4 is one of the funding opportunities that has a transnational nature, meaning that the consortia that is taking part in this joint transnational call has to gather at least 3 independent legal entities from 3 countries, and the maximum number of partners is 6. However, if the consortium contains a partner from Hungary, Malta, Slovakia, and Turkey, the maximum number of partners can be increased to 7. Also important to note is that in the consortium, you can have up to maximum 2 research groups coming from the same country. In terms of the countries that are participating, TRANSCAN-4 currently gathers 15 countries and 19 funding agencies. And I said earlier that this is a pan-European initiative, but the initiative gathers also countries such as Canada and Taiwan, which actually shows the transnational nature of the call itself. So how does this actually work in practice? So TRANSCAN-4 is launching joint transnational calls, and we have national partners that collaborate through a common call. Each beneficiary is being funded by their own national funding agency. So for you as Maltese stakeholders, you will be submitting your national application to Scienza Malta as a national funding agency, while Scienza Malta secured the budget for the participation of Maltese stakeholders. So what is the topic of the 2026 Joint Transnational Call? The topic is translational research on cancer metabolism, multidisciplinary approaches for diagnosis and treatment. And in case you will be submitting a proposal, your proposal must address one of the two following aims. Aim 1 is enabling better cancer diagnostics and monitoring through metabolic biomarkers. And aim 2 is intercepting metabolic vulnerabilities to improve precision medicine. The nature of TRANSCAN-4 is to put research into practice. Therefore, all the proposals and consortia is encouraged to demonstrate substantial clinical relevance of planned research. However, also as Christy earlier mentioned, TRANSCAN-4 as well has a lot of emphasis on building collaboration between different countries. Therefore, the call itself also supports capacity building activities. So what are the general call specifications? This is a two-stage call, meaning that it has a pre-proposal stage and full proposal stage. In the pre-proposal stage, you will be submitting a national application to Scienza Malta as your national funding agency, and you will be contributing to a transnational application. This is in the case if you are a partner to the consortia. If you are a coordinator of the consortia, meaning that you will have to identify the partners that will join your idea and your project, in that case, you will have to submit both the national application to the national funding agency and transnational application through the electronic system that is being used. Regarding the budget, Maltese stakeholders can request funding to up to 300,000 euros per project or consortia in case you have two stakeholders from Malta participating in one research proposal. The projects can last to up to maximum 36 months. Furthermore, each consortium must involve at least one basic or preclinical research team and one clinical team. And as many of you know who are working in the field of cancer research, lately there has been a lot of emphasis in involving patients. Therefore, applicants are highly encouraged to include patients during the preparation of the proposal. We've now go briefly through different call specification. However, I encourage you to have a look at the call text and guidance for applicants, where you have detailed instructions on what falls under the different aims of the call, and the whole application process is described in detail. You will have access to this presentation. As Christy mentioned, we will be sharing the presentation with you. Now, when we gave you an overview of the call itself and what it entails, we will also give you an overview of national rules that you must follow, as we as the national funding agencies are supporting participation of multi-stakeholders. So in terms of the eligibility, for you to be eligible to apply for TRANSCAN-4 Joint Transnational Call, you have to be coming from an entity that is registered in Malta or has an operating base in Malta and falls under the following: either a limited liability company, partnership, non-profit making organization, voluntary organization, professional body, cooperatives, public entities, or research and knowledge dissemination organizations. There are different funding modalities at your disposal, and these depend on the nature of your entity. So, if you are representing a non economic entity, for example, you come from the University of Malta, you will be able to receive 100% of funding or financial aid. While if you come from an economic entity, so private entity, there are two funding routes at your disposal. One is the minimis route and one is general block exemption regulation, also known as GBER. I will now just briefly describe the differences between aid intensities between de minimis and GBER. So in case you opt for de minimis, you can request up to 70% of funding, while the remainder of the amount would have to be covered by you in cash. This is also pursuant to a condition that you haven't received more than 300,000 euros in de minimis aid over 3 years. If you follow GBER route, you may be eligible to up to 70% of financial aid, while the remainder you have to cover in cash. However, GBER, the 70% is calculated based on certain conditions, so there is a flat rate of aid intensity amounting to 25%, to which then there are different percentage added based on the size of your undertaking. So if you're coming from a small undertaking, additional 20% will be added. If you're coming from a medium undertaking, additional 10% will be added. And to those percentage, we are also adding a 25% of aid based on the dissemination and effective collaboration that comes as a consequence of the nature of this call, as this is a transnational call that nurtures cooperation between different countries. We, as national funding agencies, are primarily, of course, funding research and innovation activities. And we are also aware that when you are conducting research and innovation, that there are certain costs arising. In terms of the eligible costs that you can claim, these are the personnel costs, specialized equipment and consumables, subcontracting costs, cost of IP and knowledge transfer activities, travel and subsistence, and overheads and other operating expenses. I will now go briefly in describing what falls under each category, but of course, if you will have any doubts in the process of setting up your budgets, you always may feel free to reach out to us. So in terms of the personnel costs, there are no differences no matter which funding route you opt for. So there are no differences between non-economic, de minimis, and GBER. Project management costs you can claim can be up to 10% of the total project value. If you will have any students, for example, engaged in your project, you may claim up to from 6,000 to 8,000 euros per year. The maximum number of hours per year per person is 1,720 hours. And you will see in the table that on your screen that there are differences in the hourly rates based on different roles in the project. It is important to note that these hourly rates increase every year for 5%. And also kindly note that there are certain limitations on the number of people that you can have in your project. So for example, for persons who have a management role or similar, you can have maximum 2 persons per project. For senior researchers, you can have maximum 2 persons per project, while there are no limitations for researchers or operational technicians, research support assistants, and similar. In terms of the costs relating to equipment and consumables, here we do have a difference between different funding routes. So for the non-economic and de minimis, the cost to purchase lease or specialized equipment is covered, and the cost of research consumable should not exceed 30% of the total project value. However, there's a difference when it comes to GBER. So for GBER, the cost of specialized equipment is only eligible if the lifetime of the equipment is equal to the lifetime of the project. In case the lifetime of the equipment is longer than the lifetime of the project, then the depreciation costs will apply, and those will have to be verified by the public accountant. In GBER, the same as for the other, the cost of research consumables should not exceed 30% of the total project value. When it comes to subcontracting costs, as we mentioned, as a national funding agency, our primary goal is to fund research and innovation activities, but we do understand that to a certain extent, you will have to rely on subcontracting. There are no differences between funding routes. However, you are allowed up to 20% of the total project value to be assigned for subcontracting. You must follow procurement procedure, and here we have a remark that you are encouraged to discuss any subcontracting costs that you envision with us. So please, when you will be submitting your application, if you already know that you will have some subcontracting costs, send us an email so we can discuss. In terms of the IP and knowledge activities, again, there are no differences between different funding routes. The cost of knowledge transfer activities and patents bought or licensed are covered. For example, this would be access to different softwares you may need to use, journals, and so on. Of course, if you already know that you would have to cover activities such as purchasing IP and knowledge transfer, you would have to also discuss it with us at the application stage. Since this is a transnational call and it is focused on cooperation between different countries, you will for sure have certain amount of travel. There are certain differences between different economic routes. So for the different funding routes, apologies. So for the non-economic and de minimis, economy flights and public transportation is covered, as well as per diems for up to 14 days in a row. Here, I would like to remind you that at the beginning, we said that as part of the TRANSCAN-4, capacity building activities will be covered. You have to keep in mind if you opt for example, activities that would ensure collaboration and exchange of researchers between two countries, that Maltese researcher can stay up to 14 days in a row in the other country. Apart from the economy flights and public transport, we are also covering attendance of consortium meetings, as well as any international conferences. In terms of GBER, travel costs are not eligible. So this is something that you have to account if you use GBER funding route. As well, there is the cost of overheads and other operating expenses, and here we don't have a difference between different funding modalities. So there is a flat rate of 20% of direct eligible costs claimed, and this is something that you will also have to take in consideration once you are working on your budgets. While we discuss the eligible costs, we also have to mention that there are certain ineligible costs, and these are pertaining to, for example, loans and interest expenses which are recoverable through other funding mechanisms, because our goal is to prevent double funding, repurchase of the same equipment originally procured through other funding mechanism, purchase and leasing of equipment and services from partners or their subsidiaries, standard office equipment, and personnel hours for traveling. We know that both lists are quite extensive and there might be nuances to it. So we are always here to answer any questions you may have. But also, if you are in doubt, always refer to our national rules that we will also share with you. So after we explained you what is TRANSCAN-4, what are the aims, what is the call topic, and which rules you have to bear in mind while you're working on your applications, we will also just briefly explain you the application process. So the application process can be divided in 3 steps. So the first step is that you submit the national application form and budget breakdown form, as well as any other relevant annexes to our email, eusubmissions.scienzamalta@gov.mt by 21st of July midnight. And here, if any of you have experience with writing proposals, you will note a difference because usually at the pre-proposal stage, we only ask national application form. However, for TRANSCAN-4, due to the nature of this call, we are at the pre-proposal stage also asking the budget breakdown form. So please keep in mind that there is a slight difference between TRANSCAN-4 and other funding opportunities that we have in terms of the documentation that you need to submit at the pre-proposal stage. The second step will be that the project coordinator submits the pre-proposal to the PT outline, which is the electronic submission tool. There is also a difference in timing. So this needs to be submitted by 21st of July midday. It is important that this is done on time. For example, if you are going to be coordinating the consortium, you have to keep in mind that you have to submit the pre-proposal template in a PDF format in PT outline, and then afterwards you can submit the national application form. The third step will be on us. So we as a national funding agency will be performing an administrative check of any documents that you have provided. And if all partners are found eligible, so if the national funding agencies of countries from where your partners are coming from also find them eligible, then the proposal will be evaluated and ranked. So just to summarize, what would be the documentation that you would have to submit at the pre-proposal submission? So the coordinator will create an account on the online submission tool, which is PT Outline. The coordinator will submit the proposal as a PDF file. The template is available on TRANSCAN webpage. As I mentioned, there is a slight difference between TRANSCAN-4 and all other calls that we have, and this is that in the pre-proposal template, there is already a requirement for each partner to present quite a detailed budget. So therefore, you would have to submit a budget breakdown form. And you would, of course, have to submit national documentation and other annexes. So to keep it short, no matter the nature of your entity, there are 3 things that you have to submit at the pre-proposal stage, and these are the national application form, the budget breakdown form, and CVs of principal investigators. If you are coming from a public entity, together with these 3, you would have to submit the public entity annex. If you're coming from a research institution, like for example, University of Malta, you would have to submit a public Arcadios annex. While if you are following the minimis route and GBER route, you would have to submit a memorandum of articles of association or any other respective constitutive documents. So what will happen at stage 2? So pursuant to the fact that your proposal is invited to the stage 2, the call secretariat will contact the coordinators, and the coordinators will have to submit the full proposal. Basically, the same rules will apply. The full proposal will have to be submitted in a PDF file through PT Outline. And further national documentation and annexes will be required from you as well. If you are coming from a public entity or a public Arcadio, we might ask you for additional documentation or, for example, little tweaks to your budget breakdown form that you had submitted at the pre-proposal stage. If you are following the minimis funding route, you will have to submit a de minimis form as well as audited financial statements. And for GBER, you will have to submit enterprise size declaration form and undertaking in difficulty declarations for augmented aid intensity and audited financial statements. The audited financial statements for both for de minimis and GBER have to account for the last 3 years. And if you are representing a smaller startup, then we would need financial projections that would be signed by the auditor. So what is the call timeline. The call has launched on the 20th of May, and the deadline to submit the pre-proposal is 21st of July 2026. Upon the submission of your proposal, there will be a general and national eligibility check as well as experts evaluation. And around the 26th of November, it is expected that you will know the pre-proposal assessment results. Therefore, around that period, you would be informed whether you have been invited as a consortia to submit a full proposal. The deadline to submit a full proposal is 13th of January, upon which again the full proposal will go through the expert evaluation and general and national eligibility checks. You can expect in May to receive a funding decision, so whether your proposal has been selected for funding. And if your proposal has been selected for funding, we will start the grant agreement preparation phase, where you will be in direct communication with us as your national funding agency. The expected start date of funded projects is November 2027 upon signing of the grant agreement and the consortium agreement. We've discussed a lot about the different rules as well as different annexes and what you need to submit at the different stages. All of this documentation can be found on Scienza Malta website. So if you open our website and you click funding schemes, open funding schemes, you will find TRANSCAN-4. And if you click on TRANSCAN-4, you will get access to national rules of participation applying to this exact call, as well as national application form that you need to submit. You will also have to submit additional annexes, and those can be found again if you click to funding schemes, resources pages, and there you have a list of all the annexes that you need to submit. For example, budget breakdown form. But if you, of course, have any question or any difficulties locating these annexes, just send us an email and we will send you a copy. And now we've already several times mentioned that this is a transnational call, that you need to have at least 3 partners from 3 different countries. And maybe some of you are already in discussion with different partners and you're already working on your proposals, but some of you might have an idea but don't know where to start when it comes to identifying partners. There are 2 partner search tools that you can use. One is Pathfinder and one is Plumtree. If I'm not mistaken, actually yesterday we were checking in Pathfinder, there are already different research institutes that are searching for partners for this exact call. So it's a quite useful tool to get in touch and see if you can be part of the consortia. Another option is also Plumtree, where you can also put an ad yourself that you are in a search for a partner. And as a third option, of course, there's us. We are always here to help you and guide you through the process, as well as possibly identifying any partners that can join your consortium. Now, my colleague Christy, apart from TRANSCAN-4, will also present you another opportunity that might be of interest for you.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks for the very detailed presentation. So that was it about TransCan in terms of our information to you. Now I will give you a maximum of 2 slides on the A2P. So I do not want to be too extensive. This is another opportunity that we're offering as the internationalization unit. The A2P is the Access to Partnership Scheme, which is basically if you would like to research and do this kind of research on cancer, that is fine. Then we would recommend then TransCan, obviously, as we have been explaining. However, if you have listened to this presentation and thought, maybe there's another opportunity for me instead of this one, or if there's something that maybe hasn't really linked with where you want to go, we have this scheme. This is basically providing access to all the partnerships under Horizon Europe. For example, the ones in health here that you can see on screen, such as ERA for Health, and that focuses on public health challenges, rare diseases, personalized medicine, pandemic preparedness. These are all different initiatives that also exist under the Horizon Europe umbrella. That's Malta is not an official funding partner in. So Scienza Malta is not an official partner. In this case, through the Access to Partnership scheme, we still provide 300,000 euros to Malta-based beneficiaries, should you be interested, to participate in these partnerships. So if you're interested in anything else health-related under Horizon Europe, you are free to also contact us, and you would likely be eligible under the Access to Partnership scheme. In this case, since we are not official funding partners, you would be participating under the self-funded partner option in these schemes, but we will be giving you the 300,000 from our end, from Scienza Malta. In general, it is quite a straightforward way to go about it. So if you're interested in this, obviously speak to us. But in terms of eligible costs, eligible entities, they're all the same. Rules are quite similar as well. The minimis, GBER, non-state aid, everything basically the same applies. There would just be obviously a difference in timelines because these are different partnerships, and you would require a letter of intent, which is basically we would issue a letter of intent for you, showing that we are intending to give you the money and fund your activities as a partner. This would still be obviously R&I and basically everything that we've spoken about more or less applies. So the focus here is on TRANSCAN, but if you are also interested in any other health partnership, you're free to also speak to us.